White balance, yeah. I don't know if everybody got their white balance or not.
Just smile. They have your pearly white.
They're implants.
The iPhones in there, are the iPhones in there?
Terry Martin, you ready to go?
In about 1 minute.
Okay. 5, 4. Just before we get started, for everybody's information, we'll have an opportunity afterwards for individuals. There are plenty of mayors in the audience and obviously behind me, and they'll be available afterwards if anybody wants to ask questions directly of a particular city for your market.
We'll go to that one. It's okay. It's not your fault.
Amanda, are you okay? Are you,
I'll be back.
okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're ready. I hope, Brad.
Okay. Right. We do appreciate everybody's time today. I'm Brad Cole, Executive Director of the Illinois Municipal League. I'm joined here today by a number of mayors behind me and also in the audience to talk about the proposed cuts to the local government distributive fund, which is the local share of state income taxes. As you all know, the governor proposed in his fiscal year 2016 state budget a reduction of the local share of state income taxes by 50%. What we're here today to do is to talk about the impact of those proposed cuts on the various communities throughout the state. We're represented by mayors from every corner of the state of Illinois in different size communities. And the bottom line that you'll hear is that those cuts would have an impact, a drastic impact on the programs and services that are provided to the people of Illinois through their closest government, their local government, by everyday activities to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. So we'll hear from mayors. We'll have an opportunity at the end to talk and answer questions and then break up and have individual mayors talk with you about their communities. I would like to say that we are very pleased to be working with the governor and the governor's office and the leaders of the General Assembly as we work through the budget proposals. And we understand that the governor's proposal was just that. It was a proposal to begin the discussion on the fiscal year 2016 state budget. But it's important for us and our mayors and city council men and women to address what that would mean in each community so that the citizens understand and so that they can talk with their legislators and explain the impact. So it's my pleasure to be here today with everyone. I'd like to introduce the president of the Illinois Municipal League, Mayor Jerry Doherty of Muscuda, and then we'll go through each of the mayors behind us and we'll close up at the end. Mayor Doherty.
Thank you, Brad. I think we all agree that the state has problems and we need to fix them, and I think we all agree that we need to work together to get that done. And so, having said that, we just can't have these reductions in our distributive fund. And I come from a small city, Muscuda, Illinois, population 8,000. The impact on us is $370,000. Well, that doesn't sound like a whole lot to a lot of people, but in fact, it's 11% of our general fund. And so our general fund goes to fund police and streets and parks, and we just can't afford to have that kind of cut. And so if we have that kind of cut, then what's going to happen to it? We don't have a retail base in Muscuda, so we don't get very many sales taxes. So our option left is property taxes. And what they want to do with property taxes, put a freeze on property taxes. So that's the state we're in Muscuda, and everybody else has similar problems, large or small. Thank you.
I just want to make one other point clear, and as we have the mayors here, that today is our lobby day. This is a day where we have hundreds of mayors from throughout the state here talking with the General Assembly and with the administration on these issues. And this is just one issue. This is obviously an important issue, but we are working with the governor and the legislature on issues like unfunded mandates, pension reform, and a number of other issues that affect municipalities. And this issue now, LGDF, the local share of income taxes, is an issue that we are working also with our employees on. And a number of public safety employee unions and others are helping us because of the impact it would have on them. And so this is not just mayors and city councilmen and women talking about the impact. This is everybody in a community understanding the impact that it would have on jobs and the economy in those local communities. And I wanted to just take a minute to explain that as well. And we'll go through the agenda next with Mayor Adams from Rockton.
Good afternoon. Let me tell you kind of a good news and a bad news story about Rockton, which is way up in the northern part of the state, almost to the Wisconsin border. The good news is that about 2/3 of our general revenue funds come from property tax and sales tax. The bad news is that the other third comes from LGDF. We would take about a $380,000 hit with our LGDF funding if the governor's plan is approved. We already have property tax and caps in Winnebago County, plus the fact that the EAV is lowering, so everyone's tax rates seem to be going up anyway. We're 2 miles from the Wisconsin border. Wisconsin sales tax is 5.5%. Our tax in Rockton is currently 7.2%. So to raise that is just going to drive people out of Illinois and into Wisconsin, especially for the big box shopping. To compensate for the $380,000 loss, it would probably mean about four police officers we'd have to lay off. We don't have fire in Rockton, but we do have police. We're already down to 5 public works workers, so the only area that we could really cut would be police officers, and certainly no one in our town wants that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Darch, Village President of Barrington, Illinois, which is a northwest suburb of Chicago. We are a community of 10,000 residents, a non-home rule community. For us, a 50% reduction in LGDF would mean about a $500,000 reduction in revenue to our community. That is the equivalent of 4 public safety jobs: police, fire, paramedic. It could mean 5 to 6 jobs in a public works or in one of our other departments. And this is in a community which, since 2009, has reduced staffing by 17% already to make sure that our budget is balanced. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Leon Rockingham. I'm the mayor of the city of North Chicago. I think all the municipalities do realize that the state is under heavy burden, and we do want to work with the governor. But for the city of North Chicago, I think the governor thinks that each municipality is on the same level playing field. It is not. City of North Chicago, we're home to several federal entities: Naval Station Great Lakes, James A. Lovell Healthcare Centers, which means a third of our city does not get property taxes. So that part, it is eliminated. To have the state cut 50% for us, that is $1.6 million out of our budget. Where we're trying to build and to continue to increase our economic development base would dwindle. Our property taxes would have to be increased for a community, a minority community that is trying to struggle to try to make ends meet. That would just put us further behind. We just had an opportunity to try to increase and bring in more police officers. That would have to be cut. Anywhere from a number from 4 to 5 officers would have to be decreased, along with our public service, public service department. So it would be a struggle. I think it's going to be a struggle for every community here, but for the small cities, entities like North Chicago, it just makes a harder hit. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jerry Bennett. I'm mayor of the city of Palos Hills. We have a population of about 18,000. The reduction of 50% to our community again, is somewhere around $900,000 a year. That represents anywhere from about a 10 to 12% reduction in our operating budget. And I think as the other mayors talk here, you're going to see that across the state, that anywhere from 8 to 15% total loss in operating budgets of our communities, and it's unacceptable. I think I've been around long enough to to understand and try to work with the General Assembly. LGGF is not a state fund. It's a fund that is owned by and should be caretaken by the state of Illinois. It's not theirs. And what's amazing, what's taken place, I think, over a period of time, is there's an assumption it's a state's fund. And how disingenuous can you be by saying, I can't balance a budget, or I'm not going to balance a budget with raising revenue somewhere else, but then turn around and take ours? That's not a fair playing field. Look at cities and villages. We're the ones that create the businesses. We service the businesses in our town. There's employees, obviously, that work in those businesses, citizens who pay state income tax, they pay state sales tax. There should be a partnership. There should have always been a partnership. We're the ones that have come out of this recession making the necessary cuts. And again, you'll see statewide on an average about 10 to 15% reductions have been made in staffs by local governments. And we came out of that. And we continue to balance our budgets. And I'll guarantee you a loss of 50% revenue to cities and villages in this state. You think the state has problems. Why are you going to turn around and create absolute chaos and turn governments upside down at the local level with that type of loss of revenue? It's unacceptable. And as our position has been, it's not just a matter of the 50%, 0%. That is our line we're drawing in the stand. We've seen the General Assembly in the past. Once we open up that door to a loss of any revenue stream to local governments, and all of a sudden it becomes a reduction every year, we're going to be steadfast on saying we don't want any of it taken away. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Eckert. I'm the mayor of the city of Belleville, Illinois, the southwestern part of the state. We're a city of approximately 45,000 people, and we are the largest city south of Springfield. Like all the mayors here, a 50% cut to Belleville will mean $2.2 million in lost revenue that we have budgeted for and carefully been spending and very frugal with all these years. It will devastate our budget. We, like all the cities, during the recession and trimming along the way and things we've lost from the state, we did a lot of belt tightening in 2009 and 10, laid off a lot of people. We've cut at least 26 jobs over that period of time. We avoided at that time cutting police and fire. We have a paid fire department of 63 and a paid police department of 85 in our city. And there's no doubt if they take $2.2 million, we're going to have to possibly close a firehouse or lay off a number of police officers. There's just nowhere else. You still have to shovel snow and patch the potholes, so you can't cut that staff much lower than it already is. So I share the same feelings as all these mayors. I think the big thing is that the cities have also had, and you'll hear about this, a lot of unbelievable amount of unfunded mandates. We too are being hit by the fact that the state has not dealt with pension reform, and from workman's compensation to other issues, all these things trickle down and affect local government. But this would be a direct hit on our general funds, and I don't know a city around that I've talked to that could withstand this. Lastly, the governor made a comment in his remarks that the cities have so much money in reserves. Belleville currently has about $3.2 million in reserves, which is what our auditors tell us we need to have at a minimum, and we have to have that if we want to maintain a bond rating, if we ever want to do any work or improvements in our city. So not quite sure where all the reserves are. I'm not sure what city's got it all, but we've only got $3.2 million, and when we have a payday every 2 weeks of about $600,000 plus, that would go pretty quick. It wouldn't take long to cut through the reserves. So I thank you for your time and for listening.
My name is Mike McElroy, Mayor of Decatur. We, in the last 2 or 3 years, have been very, very cognizant of the fact that our budget needed to be cut long before this particular proposal was put to us. We have cut in every department, union, non-union. We have done everything that we thought was the right way to handle it, to take financially, see that we could get the things completed in our community that we're trying to do, and we have had some success. I truly understand the fact that there's not anybody in this room that woke up today and said, my gosh, Illinois' got a problem. You all known it. We've known it. And we knew it was going on, there was very little, if anything, that local mayors would have had the ability to change. But I will tell you what will change. What's going to change is you're not going to have the same amount of people on the police department. You're not going to have the same amount of money or have the same amount of money on the fire departments. The money has to come from somewhere. And the most expensive thing that any business has is people. And we have cut approximately 135 over the last 3 years. And we thought we were doing our due diligence. We were doing it, and now we find ourselves probably a little bit deeper in the hole than a lot of places, because I don't know where we're going to go to get this money. It's going to be between $1 and $3 million. I do understand totally Governor Rauner's problem, a problem that he did not cause, but you can't put it back on the cities now. You've got to have some partnerships. I'm willing to listen to anything that we can do to be able to help the governor in anything he needs to do, but I will not give up the services that our citizens are paying for every day with their taxes. And it's a tough situation all of us are facing here, and one that I hope that we get through, and it is certainly something that the state of Illinois is going to have to look, because by talking to some of these gentlemen here, and this is some of the guys talking, this is the first I've heard some of the things, and there's anger, and there should be, but the tone and tenor has got to be that we got to work together. There has to be some things that are worked out with the state, and to take these amounts of money from the local. It's just not right.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Eisenhower, mayor of the city of Danville. Have been for the last 12 years, and my story is very similar to what you've already heard. What we've talked about is that over the course of the last 15 years, we've suffered through a recession and a near depression. And yet in each one of those years, regardless of how tough times were, every one of these municipalities balanced their budgets. And they did so by making extremely difficult decisions. For the city of Danville, we've eliminated 61 positions over the last 10 years. That's a tremendous amount of positions. We're down now to 240 employees who are still trying to provide the same services we were with those people 15 years ago. Now, the governor is talking about in his proposal eliminating, for the city of Danville, $1.6 million. That's not 3%, as it has been suggested, and as you've already heard from the other mayors. For us, that's 7.24%. Take that across the board, then, what that means for the different services we do provide our citizens. That's a $630,000 loss in police. That's a $350,000 loss in fire. That's more than $500,000 loss in parks, in public works, in public affairs. Now let's break that down into people, because again, I think what Director Cole and the other mayors have said is critically important. We're working with our employee groups because they realize if this in fact occurs, there is no fat left in any municipal budget to cut. It's going to come down to the muscle. And that muscle would mean another 14 people for us, on top of the 61 we've already lost. That's 5 police officers. That's 3 firefighters. That's a number of public works, parks, public affairs individuals who are no longer going to be able to provide services. I think the other thing that you've heard so far here today is that people have been able to make difficult decisions, but they've been able to continue to provide all of the same services to their residents. I think what you're also hearing is cuts of this dramatic size would probably end that practice, and you're going to start seeing the elimination of services that are being provided locally today. We stand ready to support the governor and the legislator in the difficult decisions they have to make. The only thing we are saying is let us be a part of that discussion. Let us be a part of looking at what other opportunities exist for helping our budgets while also assisting in the state budget. But at the end of the day, don't sink the local government ship just to keep the state afloat. With that, as a group, we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have as a whole. And as the director said earlier, there are several mayors here as well as in the audience. So if you would like to have individual conversations following this press conference, we certainly will make arrangements for you to do that. Any questions?
Scott, with the small government caucus in the legislature, are you getting any help from them? People like Ron Sandak, former mayor of Downers Grove, and to what extent might you have the votes to stop the governor's actions?
Sure. I think what we have found is that there are still so many ongoing conversations, so many groups like ours who are making some of the same similar pitches, that they're all trying to figure out as they work down the budget path exactly what direction this may take at the end of the day. What I'm very happy about is not only the number of mayors that we have in the room here today who are helping champion this cause, but in every municipality across the state. We are reaching out to representatives and senators, letting them know about the exact impact. And again, I think what happens so often at the state level is they talk about numbers without recognizing the true impact it will have on services and on people. And that's the message we're trying to get out now.
You keep saying that you would be willing to work with the state to find some alternative to these cuts. What's your answer to offset these?
Well, you know, I think as several have mentioned, and certainly others can jump in, there are so many unfunded mandates that exist today on municipal government. I think we just published a report. There are over 230 unfunded mandates that have been passed, and there are another 62 unfunded mandates that are before the state legislature during this session that would have an economic impact on municipalities. First of all, we're saying enough is enough. Help us reduce our expenses by getting rid of these many, many unfunded mandates that are quite frankly draining our budgets. And then if anyone else wants to add to that.
Just a quick comment as to resolving the state's problems. I find it quite ironic that now the state would ask local governments how to solve problems, how to balance budgets. We've been doing it for years. And I think as the mayor talked about unfunded mandates, even the some 300 that have taken place over the last 10 years, all those combined will come nowhere near a 50% cut loss in LDGF. So I don't think to be interpreted that there's some trade-off of returning certain things to us. The money is real, and the General Assembly, to be honest with you, and even the mayors will tell you that over the last 10 years and going through the recession and coming back, is that we've also had to consider certain revenue increases to also offset huge losses that we have taken in general and from the state or from the economy in general. But you've got to understand that 80% of the cities and villages in this state are non-home rule. 80%. Somehow home rule communities seem to have taken on some large role that everybody's home rule and they can do whatever they want to make up their revenue. You can't. A non-home rule community has absolutely limited abilities to raise additional revenues, meaning the type of cuts that we're talking about, or if there's some type of implication that, well, just go raise it locally. And again, how disingenuous is that to say I'm going to balance a budget and not raise taxes, take the local revenue away and expect them to raise taxes? That's no different than I've been in. Next month's my 35th year. It has never changed. It has never changed across the state as to how they deal with, unless it's a crisis, they come to local governments, and usually it's a take, not a give. We still face a huge pension crisis with our downstate police and fire. That still sits, and we were before this group last year talking about that crisis that's still not resolved. And that is also draining our revenues at a rate, 3 or 4 times it was even 10 years ago. It's a huge reduction in our operating revenue. So you're squeezing it at both ends. The genius of the General Assembly, they passed on the 2010 Tier 2 pension law that come this year, towns that don't begin to make their pension payments, they're going to take away either state income or state revenue tax as part of that pension deal. In 2 years, it's 60%. In 9 years, it's 90%. If you don't, you have to come up to 90% of your pension costs. But think about the logic of this all. On one end, they mandated pension costs to us. The fix was going forward with Tier 2, but with that, local governments had to make their payments. Well, guess what? That's going to take place, but now they're also taking away our state income tax by 50%. What's going to be left for them to take? They're taking it on both ends. Seriously, we're willing to work with the General Assembly on whatever resolve that they need to do, but they know what they need to do. They created the mess. They know that, it's my personal opinion, unless there's a balance here, of reductions in revenues, it's not going to happen. You can talk until you're blue in the face. It's not going to happen without that balance of both revenues, new revenues or any revenues, and certainly cuts and reductions.
You're obviously each mayors, you know, I mean, you got elected, congratulations. Voters like you, people in your communities know you. Do you feel at all, I don't know, the governor has said that he would be open to reversing these proposed cuts and to bringing in more revenue for the state if his big turnaround agenda passes. This is this deal that he wants. Do you feel like your cities are a bargaining chip or pawns kind of in this greater scheme? You guys have the ones with connections, and then go ahead, raise a fuss, pass my turnaround agenda on a local level, and then there you go. You won't see your budgets cut 50%.
Believe me, mayors are a lot smarter than that. I've been around them. They understand what's being parlayed out there as an agenda, and that's fine. His agenda, there's a lot of things that we understand that need to be done with the state, but it's not certainly going to be a quid pro quo with taking our revenue away. We get it. We understand it. And I think you've seen that most communities have not signed up on that. Should not be a dealing point with local distributive fund.
Can you,
Anybody else?
The
one
question
number,
that she asked earlier, she was asking about, I believe, revenue for the state, not revenue for you. I mean, nobody's going to say that they are in favor of unfunded mandates, but getting rid of those wouldn't bring any additional funding into the state. So do you have any recommendations for state sources of revenue?
Look, I'm a mayor, and we're all struggling here. I can give my opinion on a lot of things, and certainly the disaster that took place in January with the stoppage of the state income tax in the middle of a budget created certainly the immediate crisis, and you already saw what took place in this year's the end of this year's operating budget. They swept funds all over the place, including our motor fuel tax.
So would you advocate for bringing back the...
Look, if they want to, first of all, my suggestion, General Assembly, let's get rid of this non-home rule situation. Put us all on an equal playing field. That's number one. But as far as new revenues are concerned, they know what kind of revenues they need to get, and they know where to get them. But that's their decision. Taking ours, again, is disingenuous about saying I'm not creating any new revenue, but I'm going to grab local governments. What's next? State income tax or state sales tax? Well, any other revenue that the state that we have as a revenue share can be grabbed too.
what about, the state is collecting the distributed funds because it's supposed to be more efficient than every individual city collecting their own. But if the state's going to hold on to your monies, has there been a discussion among you mayors to say, let's in essence go on financial strike? We're not going to send the state our portion of the money. Either that or to sue the state because they're in violation of, in essence, the law.
I think I'd have to talk to the state treasurer to see if we can, that can't happen. The state collects, it's an automatic transfer of funds. It's held basically in an escrow.
So it first goes to the state and then comes.
Everything first goes to the state.
Is there a legal remedy? I mean, are
Well,
they in
when you
violation
understand,
of
this
an
goes back to
agreement?
1969 when they created a state income tax, and the idea back then, under my understanding on the Constitutional Convention, was that local governments, they said, okay, look, we're not going to allow you to do individual city state income tax. We'll do the state income tax. We'll collect your 10% and then give it back to you. So there's only one state income tax. One income tax. It all went to the state of Illinois, but there was created the local distributive fund. And again, in hearing more and more and talking to reps, somehow they think that's like the road fund or it's some other fund. It's our fund. It's the people's fund where that money comes back to our local communities.
You bring up a good point. You said they gave us 10%. Now we're at 8%. So they've already cut 20%.
And another thing that, again, I shouldn't be doing this, but is that the governor came out with a statement about local state income tax increased 42% over the last 10 years. I'd like to know where the heck he got that number. Because first of all, when they created the temporary income tax, it went to 5%. We had received no additional amount of revenue. In fact, proportionally, our rate went from 10 down to 6. Now that the tax has gone away, we're back up to 10. So what? Eight. So this idea of us getting 42% more income tax money over the last 10 years, I'd like to see those numbers. I'd also like to know from the governor's office when he made the comment about cities, cities in the state of Illinois are receiving way too much more money from the state compared to other states. What kind of statement is that? Where's the apples and oranges here? What's he talking about? But those are the kind of things, unfortunately, that hit the press, and people say, "Oh yes, well, cities got 42% more income over the last year, or they're getting more money than other states. That stuff sometimes sticks to the wall, but I tell you what, as these mayors know, is that we have started a campaign, and it's about time, because we're at the pulpit every week in our city council meetings, to start talking to our citizens about these cuts, because they're the ones that are going to directly affect it. You know, we unfortunately have not been a partner all these years. We've kind of sat to the sidelines and let the damage be done. We've been down here complaining and talking about it, but it's time for cities and villages to finally get to your residents and you let them know what the heck's going on here, because it's going to be a huge loss in services. And the people that should be held accountable are the ones that, if they do it, will be held accountable, and that's whether it's the governor or the members of the General Assembly. And it's time mayors start standing up to our local reps and putting them, making them accountable to what they're doing to our citizens. We represent the same people. There should be a partnership here, not an adversary position.
You know, I think that one of the other things that we all remember very clearly, during the recession, we got a good taste of what it would be like to have these kind of cuts, because the state held us. At one point, the city of Belleville was owed $1.8 million. And now at least we're back on a pretty regular payment basis. But, you know, when you're owed 1.5 or 1.8 million any given day of your revenue, it's hard to operate cities. And so I think, you know, we know what it was like a couple years ago when we were all going through that situation. So these proposed cuts, they're really very, very devastating.
Just to add a point on the 42% that the governor says that the payments to the city have ballooned by 42%. I think that's the way it's worded, and none of us can figure out what where that comes from. But in reality, when the taxes went from 3% to 5%, we should have got 67% increase, because we didn't get anything. And so to say it ballooned 42%. In reality, we should have got 67%. Yeah.
So with that, thank you all very much for coming this afternoon. Again, there are mayors available, both here as well as in the audience, who will be more than happy to do individual conversations with each of you. Thank you very much for coming today.